Greetings and welcome to the channel. This is Mikhailov from Team Retroid, where we like retro games and the devices that bring them to us. So today we are looking at the Retroid Pocket Classic. This handheld came in about last week, and I've actually gotten two other models since then. Different colors, different button configurations. I've been testing all three of them. I have to say, as far as verticals go, this one is a contender when you consider price and performance. Now there are some caveats to that, which we are going to get into in this video, but we're going to put this device through its paces, we're going to see what it's capable of, and we're going to see if it's worth your hard-earned dollar bucks. So let's dive in and get to work. At time of recording, you can find the Retroid Pocket Classic available directly on Retroid's website for $129. Now, for those of us in the United States, there are a few important things to be aware of right now. According to updates from Retroid on their Discord server, as of April 25th, both 4PX and even DHL shipping to the US have been temporarily suspended. They did mention DHL might resume on the 27th, and they're actively working on securing another shipping partner to get devices out. While Retroid has stated the core device price and tariffs won't be increasing, they've confirmed there will be a $20 increase added specifically to the shipping cost. This situation is also tied to a bigger change happening, the end of the de minimis exception for goods under $800 coming into the US from China. This significant policy change is unfortunately going to have an adverse effect on the entire retro handheld market. Because of this, we can pretty much expect price increases across the board for many retro handhelds sourced from China, which is definitely something to keep in mind whether you're looking at this particular handheld or really any other similar device. I paid about $40 for DHL shipping, bringing the total price of the Retroid Pocket Classic to $169. I am showing three different models of the Retroid Pocket Classic in this video. This Pokemon colored unit was sent to me by Retroid for the purposes of this review. As is always required, all opinions are my own, I'm not being paid, and they are not seeing this video before it is published. In addition, I purchased a retro colored model and a 6-button Saturn colored model with my own funds. It's time to hop on our mount and ride into Spec Town. The Retroid Pocket Classic is powered by a Snapdragon G1 Gen 2 processor. The GPU is an Adreno A12. The device comes with either 4 or 6 gigabytes of LPDDR4X RAM and either 64 or 128 gigabytes of built-in storage with expansion via a microSD card slot. The screen is a 3.9-inch AMOLED screen with a 1240 by 1080 resolution and a 60 Hz refresh rate. Giving the device life is a 5000 mAh battery. For connectivity, this handheld has Wi-Fi 5 built in as well as Bluetooth 5.1. The device ships with Android 14. It's time to unbox the unit, where we'll find a spec sheet and a quick start card, a quality assurance tag, the unit itself, and a USB-C cable. Okay, so it's time for us to tour the device. So we're going to take a look at the hardware, the buttons, kind of see what this device is made of. Let's just go ahead and start here at the top. There's not much to see here. You have your USB-C slot, you have your headphone jack, and you have a micro SD card slot. On the side, there's volume up and down as well as a power button, and nothing on this side except for a microphone hole. Now the front is our star of the show here. You have this absolutely gorgeous AMOLED screen, and then underneath that you have a single front-facing speaker that takes up the majority of the bottom here. And then you have your face buttons, your D-pad, and a button that functions as Android's home and back. So let's take a look at the buttons. We'll start with the D-pad. And Retroid is very well known for having decent D-pads. This particular one is very clicky, but it's also fairly comfortable. Like, there's really not much negative I have to say about it other than the fact that it is a little clicky. And so let's go ahead and do our sound test. I would say it's kind of a quiet click. It's not really a loud click. It may annoy a neighbor, but I don't think it would annoy you during regular gameplay. Now let's take a look at the face buttons, and these are a lot less noisy. These are actually fairly quiet unless you really hammer down on them. Let's do that now. Again, not terrible, but there is a bit of noise to them. Apparently, I accidentally launched Wario. Nothing on the bottom. And then here on the back, you have your intake and you have your exhaust. So you have active cooling here. There is an active fan and there are fan controls. And then you have nice angled shoulder buttons, and they do feel really good as far as resting your thumb on them, but you're also not going to accidentally depress the buttons. They're not too loose, they're not too tight. Goldilocks would be appreciative because these triggers are actually just right. And then another thing to note here would be just the design of the unit itself. The plastics are matte, they're not fingerprinty at all. I've been using this device, and yeah, I can, if I zoom in, see some smudging there, but because of the color options that this device comes in, it's not that bad at all. As far as passing a fingerprint test, I would say that the Retroid Pocket Classic passes with flying colors because it's not going to look like a smudge magnet after an extended amount of time, and if you do start to see smudges, then you can easily just wipe them off. Another thing that I do want to point out would also be just the overall feel of this device. This is definitely designed to be more toy-like, and when you hold this in your hand, that's going to be kind of the feel that you get. It's going to be like holding an original Game Boy, which was meant to be a toy, and this is not going to have much of a premium or high quality feel to it, but it is going to feel like something that you are going to enjoy picking up and playing. It's kind of meant to have wear and tear on it, and it's meant to get used. It's not meant to be a display piece. So the fact that the quality is a little bit lower actually doesn't bother me because I wouldn't mind, considering what I paid for this, just throwing it in a bag or putting it in my pocket. And I'm not going to worry too much about it getting a little bit of, let's say, character over time. Now that we're done with the device tour, let's start getting into the device itself by comparing it to some other verticals. I'm going to start with the most expensive alternative, the iNeo Pocket DMG. Here's the interesting thing about the Pocket Classic compared to the Pocket DMG. There isn't that much of a size difference. They both use the exact same AMOLED screen, size, resolution, and all, and there really aren't a lot of compromises if you were to choose the Retroid Pocket Classic over the iNeo DMG. The iNeo handheld is a much more powerful handheld with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor, but you're not really going to take advantage of all that power if you're looking to play older systems. Not only that, but the Retroid Pocket Classic actually holds its own when it comes to GameCube and PS2 games, which we'll get to a little later in this video. The only real advantage is the inclusion of a joystick and a touchpad on the Pocket DMG. You are paying a premium for that advantage though, because the Pocket DMG starts at $419. If you want the Retro Power model, you're looking at a whopping $669. That's a lot of money to play Game Boy games, whereas the Retroid Pocket Classic is a much more palatable $129 plus shipping and also comes in a retro color. The Pocket Classic is much more toy-like compared to the Pocket DMG, which means that I'm less likely to worry about it breaking and more likely to throw it in a pocket or a book bag to take with me on the go. Now let's take a look at another budget handheld in case you're looking for something quicker and only want to play older systems, the Anbernic RG40XX-V. Before the Pocket came along, this was a very solid choice for a budget vertical. Now this device has a much weaker chipset and can only play up to about PS1. It also has an IPS screen as opposed to an AMOLED screen, but it does have a few advantages over the Retroid Pocket Classic. It's a little bit cheaper even if you were to purchase it on Amazon. I spent about $84.95 at time of recording to grab this handheld with Amazon Prime next day shipping. Unfortunately, you're looking at paying the exact same if you order direct from Amernick's US warehouse, because you will still pay about $17 shipping, bringing the price up to $85.87 USD. The same as buying from Amazon with Prime shipping, and you'll get it in a day. If you're looking to spend under $100 for a vertical and don't want to emulate higher end systems, the 40XXV would be my recommendation. I did a review on this handheld, which I'll throw up a card for, and I'll also leave a link in the video description. And the last comparisons I want to make are with the original Game Boy hardware, because these classic handhelds are designed to be a love letter to the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. The colors that the Retroid Pocket Classic are available in are the same colors that the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color was available back in the day. The Retro Color is very close to the original DMG Game Boy. The colors on the Pocket Classic are a little brighter and cleaner than this DMG Game Boy that was given to me pre-loved by my friend James, but the overall feel is there. The colors in general are going to be close, but not 100% authentic. If you compare the Pokemon color to the original, which I was able to do courtesy of my friend C-Wag from the Retro Handhelds community, you could see that the original is a little brighter and glossier, and the yellow in the RP Classic is a little darker, but it's close enough to relive the nostalgia if you owned one of these original systems. Now it's time to check out gameplay, and I'm going to start with the earlier systems. On the Retroid Pocket Classic, both Nintendo and Super Nintendo can run at an 8:7 aspect ratio without any black bars at the top and bottom. And because developers took CRT TVs into account when they made their games, the only cutoff you're getting is garbage content that would be at the top and bottom of the screen. This screen is also absolutely perfect for Game Boy and Game Boy Color, hitting the perfect aspect ratio to enjoy these games full screen. Game Boy Advance also works very well, but you will have black bars that you might want to put an overlay on due to the system's 3:2 aspect ratio. If you are interested in playing arcade systems or Sega systems, then you might want to prioritize getting the 6-button model of the Retroid Pocket Classic. This is the model that I have been using the most since it came in for several reasons. When it comes to fighting games, you can have all of your punches and kicks assigned to the front buttons. I usually don't emulate arcade systems, but on the 6-button model of the Retroid Pocket Classic, I have absolutely enjoyed playing arcade games because you have these 6 buttons on the front that you could program to different functions based on the arcade game you're playing. I also don't usually dive into Sega Saturn because I don't have the nostalgia for it. I never owned one, but again, the 6-button model has inspired me to try it out. You can emulate Saturn right in RetroArch because the Classic has the power to handle it, and there are some pretty fun games in the library that are worth checking out. The 6-button layout has also helped out in other ways. When emulating Nintendo DS using the Drastic emulator, I set the buttons on the left to screen swap controls. I set the Z button to switch between the top and bottom screens, and the C button to switch between a single screen and dual screen layout. This has made the 6-button model the easiest way for me to emulate Nintendo DS on a single screen handheld. If you're into the DS Pokemon games, you can very easily switch screens to navigate menus and bounce to a dual screen layout in order to choose your attacks in battle. It's not the same as having 2 screens side by side, but it's really close. Even going back to older systems like the NES and Game Boy Advance, the button placement of the bottom 3 buttons meant that I didn't have to reconfigure A and B to B and Y like I do on the 4-button systems. The feel and placement of the buttons just felt natural for those systems, like an original Game Boy Advance or an NES controller. If I had to choose only one model Retroid Pocket Classic, I would definitely choose the 6-button model over the 4-button. I would say the absolute ceiling for performance on the Retroid Pocket Classic would be GameCube and PS2. This is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, at the $129 price point, it's amazing that we can emulate these systems at a native resolution using their respective standalone emulators. On the other hand, we don't have analog joysticks, meaning we have to make some compromises like mapping the left joystick to the D-pad or utilizing touchscreen controls. You can also limit yourself to games that don't make use of the extra controls. Due to these control compromises, I would consider these systems to be more of a bonus, but a nice bonus to be sure. It's kind of mind-blowing how well these systems run on the Retroid Pocket Classic. I also did try some light Nintendo Switch emulation on the Retroid Pocket Classic, which ultimately was less than ideal. The RP Classic does have a Snapdragon processor, but there isn't any driver support for it yet. I found most games under the default driver would just crash and not work, while other lightweight games would just run sluggish. I did find that a few games that I tested didn't run well, but you'll have very little screen real estate if you play these games at 16:9 resolution. You can force 4:3, and they generally will look better, but I would overall consider Nintendo Switch unplayable on the Retroid Pocket Classic. Finally, let's look at some light Android gaming. There are a lot of Android games out there with native controller support, and they will work really well on the Retroid Pocket Classic. However, I was surprised that even though this device runs Android 14, the Play Store flagged a bunch of titles as not playable despite their obvious ability to run on this device. You can bypass that by sideloading them through the Aurora Store because games like Balatro and Leo's Fortune are absolutely playable on the Retroid Pocket Classic. They will also adapt to the aspect ratio of the device. It's kind of annoying that you have to use that workaround. Don't be fooled if the Play Store tells you something is incompatible with the Classic. Unless it's a heavy game like Genshin, it'll most likely work. With that, let's wrap things up with my final thoughts. The AMOLED screen is absolutely gorgeous. It's just plain eye candy for retro games. And no matter what system you're emulating, you can emulate a lot. I was pretty shocked by just how powerful this device is given how little we know about the chipset. The fact that I was able to get GameCube and PS2 running on a sub $200 device is just pretty darn amazing. The Retroid Pocket Classic is clearly designed to take us back to the wondrous, innocent time that was the 1990s, and it does so pretty well. I wasn't sure how I would like the 6-button model just because I grew up mostly with Nintendo systems. To my surprise though, I found myself enjoying it more than the 4-button models just for the flexibility that having 2 extra buttons allows. However, these devices aren't perfect. No device is. So let's talk about some of the negatives. The plastic feels kind of toy-like. Not necessarily in a bad way, but it doesn't feel exactly high quality either. The plastic isn't bad. It doesn't smudge or fingerprint, which is a win in my opinion, but it doesn't necessarily feel like an old Game Boy either. It's hard to explain, but the RP Classic definitely feels more like a toy than an electronic. This isn't a deal breaker though, because I feel more comfortable traveling with the RP Classic in a pocket than something like the iNeo Pocket DMG. It's not something you have to baby. It's something that's designed to be played and used and get wear and tear on. This may not necessarily be a negative to me, but it might be a negative to some. The power of this device does come with the sacrifice of not having a joystick. Even if Retroid included a flat slider, like on the PSP or on the original Retroid Pocket Flip 1, it would have added just enough flexibility to be able to fully enjoy some of the higher end systems that this handheld is capable of. While you can connect an external controller, this handheld does not have video out. This is a missed opportunity, probably to save on cost, but if it did have video out, you could have connected the RP Classic to a TV or monitor and enjoyed playing higher end systems that way. This makes the Classic a harder recommend over Retroid's sister devices like the Flip 2 and the Retroid Pocket 5, or something cheaper like the Anbernic RG40XXV, which does have an HDMI out port. Even Retroid's earlier offerings like the Retroid Pocket 2 and 2S had HDMI out of some kind. So this is a very curious exclusion. This thought transitions perfectly into my last point that there are cheaper options available if you are looking to play older systems such as Game Boy and Game Boy Color. This makes the Classic an even harder sell, especially in the US right now with all the tariff issues. Overall though, you probably noticed that this video was mostly positive on the Retroid Pocket Classic. This was because I really enjoy playing games on this system just for the screen and buttons alone. I have absolutely fallen in love with the 6-button unit, and out of the 3 that I currently have in my house, I think that will be the model I decide to keep in the end. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And please feel free to continue the conversation on the Retro Handhelds Discord, where you can find me hanging out in between videos. And if you want to support the channel like these wonderful people on the screen, you can do so by going to my Patreon page. Links for all these places are in the description. But that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please be sure to like and subscribe if this video was helpful to you in any way. Every smash of that button helps the channel grow, and allows me to get more content out to you. But until next time, bye for now, and don't stop believing.